At FIE, we're not just
students
and faculty.
We're not only learners
and lecturers.
We are expanding minds,
Expanding futures.
We're redefining the classroom.
We are life-changing.
eye-opening. We are a community.
Driven by our values.
That wants you.
You.
Yes, you.
To join.
Hello, and welcome to In the Field, a podcast from FIE, where we will be exploring all things study abroad. I'm Dr. Heidi James Dunbar, writer in residence and senior faculty, and I will be your host. Joining me today is Dr. Elizabeth Cooper. Elizabeth's scholarship explores the praxis of freedom that have been made possible or, indeed, foreclosed as a result of social struggles in the post-emancipation Black Atlantic, through research and public interventions into the histories of work, racism, and popular culture in Brazil, the Caribbean, Britain, and the United States. Elizabeth received her PhD in history from the University of Chicago. She has held fellowships at the Sarah Parker Ramon Center for the Study of Racism and Racialization, the Institute of the Americas, the Center for the Study of International Slavery, and the Center for the Study of Race, Politics, and Culture. Elizabeth has taught at universities in the US and the UK, including the University of Chicago, Florida International University, the University of Nottingham, and University College London. She approaches teaching as a process of mutual learning and transformation and believes that education, in the tradition of Paulo Freire, should be a practice of liberation. You can learn more about our faculty and courses on our website, www.fie.org.uk. Welcome, Elizabeth. Thank you so much for joining me.
Hi, Heidi. I'm really happy to be here. I'm glad that you wanted to do this. This is great.
Oh, of course. In your biography, you mention that education should be a practice of liberation. I wondered if you could tell me what you mean by that.
Yeah. So I am of the ilk, generation, community, whatever we want to call it, of that. For me, lots of things happen in life. You could, your fortunes could be good or bad, but if you're able to think, if you're able to know yourself, if you're able to understand the world around you and love and care for the people around you, that's something that nobody can take from you. And so it's something that's always yours, that you have inside of you. And so I think that's a certain form of freedom. And that's what education, to my mind, does. It allows you to make sense of your life and to think critically about the world around you and be creative and make choices and create new things. And that is also a kind of freedom. So there's that really profound kind of existential meaning for me that's there in that. There's also the idea that the classroom space is actually, and as a teacher, I'm also a student. So I see myself in a joint, journey with my students and a journey of transformation. And that's a freeing experience as well. The classroom space is kind of a special space where we test out ideas. We have a safe space to feel uncomfortable or not know certain things or ask questions that, there's so much pressure in other parts of our lives where we're supposed to know what to do, act quickly. And so I think the classroom is still a very rare space where we're able to be free and to explore and experiment with ideas. And that can be really transformative and really let you, be surprised or view the world differently I just think it's a powerful thing, and it's in some ways intangible, but in other ways very powerful and very transformative on all those levels. So that's where I'm at, and as a teacher and in my own life and my own practice, and as a student. Still, I see myself forever as a student and forever engaged in education, my own education, as well as with my students. So.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. If we're always open and forever questioning and open to learning, I think you never get old. You're always young if you're, or certainly young at heart, if you're open to new experience, to new ideas,
Yeah, exactly.
always.
Yeah.
Hmm. And so you've held a number of fellowships, I know most recently at UCL, and I'd really like to know more about that. So let's start, I think, by explaining to the uninitiated what is a fellowship.
Yeah, sure. I think those are great questions too, right? The really basic ones, because I maybe even people who get fellowships take it for granted. Like, what is this supposed to be about? Like,
Yeah.
I've had a lot of fellowships over the years, and they are incredible opportunities. Usually, they're associated with a place where other people are doing research or teaching. They're usually associated with a university or a research center, and they have funds. It's like a job, except you get funds to. They look for people thinking through new ideas, doing new types of research. I mean, my research, of course, is in the humanities, and social sciences, but there's a range of fellowships that exist out there in other in sciences and so on. But so my fellowships have been in history predominantly, and they're an opportunity. They can last. They can be short-term fellowships, maybe 3 to 4 months. They can be longer-term ones, 1 to 2 years, and they give you. Speaking of freedom and education is liberation, they give you the freedom to read, to research, to write, to they want to support you in what your project is, what your idea is, if sometimes it's to finish a manuscript or an article, sometimes it's to do new research that you can't find space to do if you're teaching or having to have other responsibilities within a university or otherwise. So yeah, it's a great chance for someone to find space and time to think and write and do research generally.
Yeah. To be a student.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, that sounds wonderful. And your last one at the UCL, what were you focusing your research on in particular for that fellowship?
So that fellowship was with the Sarah Parker Remond Center for the Study of Racism and Racialization. And it was, as you said, at UCL. And that research center is within a larger center, the Institute of Advanced Studies. I was working on a project that came out of a curatorial and a project called Sowing Roots and an exhibition that I had done. I was working a lot with oral histories of people who were born in the Caribbean and moved to the UK. And I was looking at their memories of nature and their practices of growing in horticulture when they moved to the UK. I am very interested. This is the project that I'm currently writing on and going to publish on. Really interested in the kinds of imaginations of community and the kinds of imaginations of politics that came out of the long history of plantation economies in the Caribbean and how those get translated into the diaspora. So that was the project itself. But the fellowship was fantastic for lots of reasons. One was because I got to get into my specialty that I just discussed, but the other was that they're really the Sarah Parker Remond Center is really committed to like artistic practices, linking up with academic research. So as a curator, it was a great place to be. And as a historian, it was a great place to be. So I ran a series on, I called it Unstitching Racism and Empathetic Repair. And it was looking at what kind of actions of reparative history can be done through curation. So building on, I mean, a number of people have written on reparative history and the possibilities of writing history to address legacies of, in particular, colonialism. But and yeah, we brought in fantastic authors and other curators and artists who were doing that kind of work in sort of public history venues to run workshops for the students and so on. So yeah, it was really wide-ranging, fantastic opportunity at UCL. There and the Institute of Advanced Studies was a great place to be. And teaching on the master's program there, which has only been running for 4 years. And the center actually got started when there was a huge movement at UCL around their connection to the eugenics projects that were based in UCL and Galton. And that's how the center where I was based got started, for them themselves as an institution of higher education to be reckoning with those legacies and histories internally. So yeah, a really special place to be. Really glad that, and really continuing to make connections with them and continuing to work with them, even though the fellowship is now over. So
that's really important work, and wonderful to hear about an institution that is not just talking the talk, but actually walking the talk and truly putting those reparative ideas into practice and putting their money where their mouth is. That's wonderful. And sounds like really exciting work was happening too.
Yeah, it's I can't actually sing their praises, enough, honestly. It was a great opportunity. And I encourage my students to, because all of the events are free, and they run fantastic public events. And they have early career researcher. I organized an early career researcher conference. Actually, it was very touching. So Paul Gilroy, who started the center, was a huge influence. A huge influence on my own work. And the first time I met him was when I was a PhD student in Chicago. And yeah, he talked about, music and, he's Paul Gilroy. He just talked about everything. And and the fact that it came full circle and was able then to work with him again, at this stage in my life, at the center that he started there. And then a former student of mine, when I was teaching in Miami, I encouraged him to do a PhD at the London School of Economics when Paul Gilroy was there. He went on, now he's the head of the Department of Geography at Berkeley. And I asked him to come and do a keynote for this early career conference. And yeah, so on a very personal level, like on a, intellectual, but also on a very personal level, there were a lot of dots that were connected for me. So it was a great experience overall. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds incredible. And you mentioned being a curator and curating the Sowing Roots exhibition. How does that work as an historian? How does it work becoming a curator? And tell us about the exhibition too. Sorry, I'm asking you lots of questions, one on top of the other.
That's why we're here. It was, so I have the fortune, I guess, I don't know, for those who might be listening to this and are thinking like, oh, do I want an academic career? Do I want to be a curator? What is like higher education about, or studying abroad? I mean, I had the fortune to start in a traditional academic career and started with a tenure track job. But, never did my PhD with the idea that it was just because I wanted the white picket fence around the cottage to be a professor. It was more about, and this might sound cringy, but the search for truth and how to, like, as I was saying in the beginning, how to better understand myself in the world and then do that collectively, and make the world a better place in doing so. And so when I moved to the UK, I had the opportunity to shift from just being a lecturer to also working as a curator at the British Library. And that's when the curation shift really happened for me. And as a scholar, and it was a great place to do it, because there was this, for me at least, there was this balance, which I wanted, this balance between research, creating new projects, engaging with archives, working with, thinking about creating new collections. What should be archived now? So as a historian, there's like that kind of work. But then there was also like, how do you tell stories about this? And that's obviously also what historians do, but how do you tell stories, not just in professional language, like that you have to be trained to understand the story, but in a way that's moves people, that allows people to tell their own stories. So it just opened this whole other world for me that I wanted that was really part, a big part of why I wanted to become a historian. And yeah, so I got to work there. One of the most important exhibitions I did there was on the anniversary of the arrival of the Windrush. And it was the same year that the scandal broke about the deportations that took place. And so it was very poignant. And I mean, that's an understatement. It was incredibly important to have this public conversation about those histories. And so as a scholar, I don't know if I could really ask for more, to be able to contribute somehow to our collective understanding of how we got to where we are today. That's just so fundamental to the work, to the way I understand my work. And then after that, I was involved in a few other projects, and then another major exhibition that I had the honor to be a part of and to be a curator of was this Sowing Roots project at the Garden Museum. And again, this was sort of serendipitous. It was difficult because the project got funded through the national lottery, and COVID hit, and all curators and people in kind of cultural sector it was really, really hard, right? Spaces were closed and everything was online, and we all know it was hard for everyone in different ways. But eventually, as things opened up, we were able, because it was an oral history project. And so we were able to start doing the oral history interviews. It was intergenerational. And so this project was focused on Caribbean gardening in South London. And it was an attempt by the Garden Museum to, they intentionally wanted to change or open up their audience, who they were speaking to in London, and change to reach out to more communities, more diverse communities is the language they used, really like more communities that weren't just white and weren't just of a certain generation. And actually talk to their local community because they're based in South London, but most of the people that were going to their exhibitions were not from South London. And my expertise in Caribbean history and the legacies of enslavement and the practices of people who were enslaved in growing their own food and then attempts to do subsistence farming in the Caribbean after the end of slavery was a big part of what I was contributing as a scholar to the project, to understand how those histories are carried with people well into the late 20th century, stories that people tell about their grandparents and great-grandparents and meanings of food and meanings of plants that they grow and so on. So I worked with the young people as well as the people that were interviewed, the older generation that was interviewed, to get those stories out and to have them share their stories.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So a real wealth. I mean, I can imagine the sort of treasure you've got there of culture and history and people's deep connections to self.
Yeah, it was just, there was so much, about family, the meaning of life, health, well-being, all kinds of like medical practices that people do with plants that oftentimes aren't recognized, but people are increasingly interested in that, I suppose. And if I could share, there was also this other aspect of the curation that we had this brainwave. One day I walked into a meeting and I said, so there were ethics around how to use oral histories, how to use people's words in then do an exhibition. And how do you change that? This isn't going to be kind of explaining one person's culture to another audience, but rather really make this sort of like, transform the way a traditional museum exhibition is curated. And we decided to use quotes rather than have labels that sort of said, this leaf is originally from Barbados, et cetera, just as an example. And we used quotes from the interviews as the labels. And it was really interesting kind of flipping the script for people who came to see it, because many people who were familiar with the objects would then start sharing their stories with their friends as they looked at it, like, oh yeah, my grandma used to do that or whatever. And then the more traditional audience would be a little perplexed or not quite sure, and then have to ask more questions to people around them. And that was a great opportunity to do as well. And a risk in some ways for the institution to take, but change comes with that. And it was the most attended free exhibition ever that the Garden Museum did. And yeah, it's gone on to have like online legacies and so on. So it was a great experience.
So a huge success.
Yeah, it was, and it was also for the people involved. Many of them have gone on to be able to use it for funding bids or so on. So, I mean, that was also something that we really wanted to ensure. I think that those involved in the project were also like, this was very important for them and what they wanted to do, that it wasn't just sort of extractionist, if you will, or for lack of a better word, but that everybody was getting something out of the process together.
And you were turning this kind of those Linnaeus taxonomies on their heads too, that you were sort of
Exactly.
Yeah, that's really important, because there obviously is a colonial and a deeply entrenched colonial legacy in the naming of plants and
Yes,
flora
exactly.
and fauna. So that's really exciting. So we could do exciting things with research.
Yes, I know. I mean, it was, and we did community workshops. So like in various community gardens, we had like just gatherings where people would like share songs or memories, and people who were part of the project talking about the project. And there was a Lambeth, the Lambeth History Festival happens every year, and we got involved in that and did some workshops in local parks about growing, and it was really good. It was a fantastic way to connect, as you just said, like, scholarship and that kind of work with outside of the ivory tower.
Yeah, real knowledge that's used every single day by everybody.
Yeah.
That's really special. It's really precious to be able to sort of connect to community and be a part of something. I think we're really lucky to be able to do that.
Yeah, I do too. I feel very lucky that that's, like I said at the beginning about the curator, just very fortunate that I've found a way to do that. And I think I'd want to encourage everyone listening that it was scary. I'm not going to lie. I had people calling me when I decided to leave my tenure track job saying, are you okay? Like, all right. And I was like, yeah, but so, I mean, I don't want to say be reckless, but I also got to look out for yourself. But I also want to say, don't be afraid to take risks. I do feel that sometimes we live in a world where, there's a lot of pressure to do the right thing and worry about, the unknown, and that sense of like, I'm going to try this. And I think this is the right thing to do for me. I got all these wonderful messages from people like, it's so fantastic to hear that, like, you can jump off the cliff and land on your feet, and that like things are, and it's very meaning making in one's own individual life to be able to do that. And also like maybe fail. Like, I'm not saying it didn't all go well all the time, but there, even institutionally as a curator, I had lots of struggles at the British Library and at other institutions that I worked with, because change is hard, but that's also all part of that process of doing the thing that you think is important and right for you. And
I agree. Failure is where you learn. Failure is where you grow. Failure is where you discover the elusive thing you've been looking for.
Yes. Yeah. You don't know what you'll be surprised by when you think.
Yeah, can return many gifts, supposed failure, I think.
I totally agree. Yeah.
That's where you get creative. So I wonder if you might share your city secret with us.
City secret. I was thinking about London and thinking about how Londoners develop a very, very, very honed, they hone their skills of how not to make eye contact, particularly on the tube. Right. So we all know that. But one of my city secrets in London was going to be to talk to people, actually.
I love that. Tell me more.
I This is one of the most incredible cities on earth. Everyone has an incredible story. Like, I mean, and I know that's true everywhere, but I think that there's to some degree, there's a little bit of self-selection in London. And there are just things that you could have never imagined. And people are more often than you might think willing to share them. And also, there are all kinds of coincidences that have happened to me in my life here. And just by talking to people, like, what? Oh, like, I don't know. Oh, your family's from there too, or I studied there as well, or I don't, just connections that can be made that in a city that can often feel so anonymous and cold and harsh. That's just been one of the most wonderful things about living here. And I know it sounds kind of counterintuitive, but I think that's a great thing about London, is talking to people.
Yeah, no, I love that. Do you have any tips on how to do it? Because it can be quite daunting.
Yeah. Not being afraid to be embarrassed. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I don't just go up to someone, and I don't usually go up to someone and be like, "Hey, how you doing?" But you know, I help people on the tube all the time if they seem to be struggling, or I'll make eye contact with someone if something funny happened and kind of like laugh with them, and then we might get to start talking. Or yeah, I mean, I guess being open to it and taking the opportunity when it arises. I mean, I think I always talk to people when I go into build, like security staff or people who work in shops, or the kind of just always say hello, or asking people how they're doing. I don't know. But yeah, I guess being just human and like present with people has been, for me at least, is really, I rarely have had a bad experience with someone when I've done that. So yeah. The other thing I would say about London is being outside, which again might sound counterintuitive because it is such an indoor culture to some degree because of the weather and stuff. But
what do you mean? Our weather's wonderful.
Yeah, there's no bad weather, right? It's just bad equipment. There's so much to do outside, like everything from the link trail to not just the royal parks, but like there's proper woods, kayaking on the Thames and on the canals, climbing walls all over the city. Like there's just so many ways for people to be swimming in ponds, from Becknam Park to Hampstead Heath outdoor wild swimming. And I just would encourage people that was another, I don't know if it's really a secret, but it's definitely, I think, just a wonderful thing about London, and that is pretty rare. I mean, I think that is unique to London. There aren't very many other mega cities that I can think of as wealthy as London is, that has the amount of kind of the number of things you can be outdoors and do. Yeah.
City secret here, you've heard it here. Londoners aren't as unfriendly and mean as you think, and we're not, actually. It's true. I've had many great chats with random strangers I've met on the tube or standing in a queue for a coffee or what have you. And yeah, no, you're absolutely right. That's brilliant. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. It's been an absolute joy talking to you. And when you have your next project, will you come on and tell us all about it?
Oh, I would love to. Thank you. Absolutely. Yeah.
Have you got anything in the pipeline?
Well, I'm intending on publishing, I'm working now on publishing the research that I was doing on the fellowship. So that's kind of I suppose the main next thing for me, and goal that I want to do this year. And we'll see where that goes. I think I feel my trajectory is definitely with thinking through more the Anthropocene and, I guess what you might call subaltern visions of politics related to nature and visions of nature. And so this article will, I think, be the beginning of kind of thinking more through those kinds of questions. But watch this space.
That sounds incredible. Will you be thinking about the Neolithic revolution and the absolute catastrophe of farming?
Yes, exactly. We just talked about that in class yesterday. So,
well, thank you so much, Elizabeth. I can't wait to talk to you again. Thank you for joining me. If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe or follow us on your podcast app where you can find more episodes introducing our faculty, tips for studying abroad, and more. Thank you so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed our podcast. FIE provides life-changing study abroad experiences in the UK, Ireland, and Spain. As a non-profit education organisation, we are passionately invested in making a difference for our students as the future global leaders of tomorrow and the field of international education as a whole. The FIE podcast is a creative and academic space exploring everything, the people, the places and opportunities that make your experience so valuable and exciting.
FIE. We're here to help you
Unlock a wider
brighter future.